The kingdom was serene. Inside the squared circle on Friday Night SmackDown, the air hummed with the familiar cadence of dominance. The tribal chief, Roman Reigns, stood as the center of his universe, the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, a golden sun resting on his shoulder. Flanked by the stoic enforcer Solo Sikoa and his ever-eloquent wiseman, Paul Heyman, he absorbed the cacophony of the WWE Universe with an emperor's placid disdain. Paul Heyman, microphone in hand, was painting his weekly masterpiece. He spoke of an unbreakable dynasty, a title reign measured not in days but in epochs, and an island of relevancy, protected by walls of conquest and loyalty. The crowd responded on cue, their boos and cheers the soundtrack to a coronation that never seemed to end. It was business as usual. It was the predictable rhythm of power that had lulled the entire industry into submission. Roman raised his index finger, the symbol of his undisputed oneness, ready to deliver his signature catchphrase. But tonight, a new discipline was about to be enforced. It began not with a glitch, but with a sound. A single sharp clack, like two bamboo staffs striking together, echoed through the arena's sound system. It was sharp, out of place, and cut through Heyman's speech, causing him to falter. A low, resonant hum followed, deep and meditative, like the chant from a remote mountain dojo. The lights in the arena didn't flicker. They began to slowly, unnervingly dim. Michael Cole on commentary sounded confused. "What is that sound? Is that part of the production?" Corey Graves leaned into his microphone, his voice hushed. "No, Cole, that's not production. That feels ancient. That feels like a warning." Then the arena was plunged into a deep, profound darkness. Not a chaotic blackout, but a controlled, deliberate void. The crowd's roar was instantly muffled, replaced by a wave of hushed anticipation. The only lights were the faint red glows from the cameras, painting the confused and suddenly isolated faces of the Bloodline in the ring. Roman's look of arrogance was wiped clean, replaced by a tense, alert vigilance. Solo Sikoa stood motionless, a statue of readiness. Paul Heyman, however, looked lost. This wasn't the chaotic terror he was used to. This was methodical. This was the calm before a perfectly executed strike. The Master's arrival. The haunting hum intensified, now accompanied by the slow, rhythmic beat of a taiko drum. It was a sound of ceremony, of tradition, of impending combat. On the massive Titantron, a new image bled through the darkness. It wasn't static or fire, but an elegant blood-red ink brush stroke, painting a circle, an enso, the Zen symbol of enlightenment and strength. Inside the circle, Japanese characters faded into view before dissolving into English letters, forming a name that was both familiar and utterly alien to this world. Arissa. The crowd murmured, the name holding no immediate context. But then, below it, another name was painted into existence, a name that carried Hollywood and wrestling royalty in equal measure, LeBrock. A ripple of recognition went through the arena. LeBrock, a name synonymous with beastly dominance, but the aesthetic, the sound, the atmosphere, it didn't match. Before the confusion could settle, the commentary team was sent into a frenzy by a graphic that flashed on screen for a mere second. A photo of Arissa as a child, standing beside the iconic ponytailed figure of her father, martial arts legend and action film megastar, Steven Seagal. Michael Cole's voice cracked with disbelief. "Wait a minute, did you see that? That was Steven Seagal, Arissa LeBrock. Is that Steven Seagal's daughter? We knew her mother was Kelly LeBrock, but this changes everything." The arena fell into a stunned hush. The name now carried a new, far more dangerous context. This wasn't the lineage of a beast. This was the lineage of a dragon. An entrance of serene danger. From the entrance tunnel she emerged, not through smoke or fire, but into a single, perfectly focused white spotlight that illuminated her against the darkness. Her presence was a study in contradictions. She was undeniably powerful, her athletic frame honed to a razor's edge, yet she radiated an aura of profound calm. There was no wasted motion, no theatrical posturing. Her attire was a fusion of ancient tradition and modern warfare. She wore sleek black form-fitting pants that resembled the traditional hakama, allowing for maximum mobility. Her top was a modern tactical interpretation of a GI, sleeveless and reinforced, with a red dragon emblem subtly embroidered over her heart. Her hands were wrapped in black athletic tape, not gloves, emphasizing a reliance on raw technique over brute force. Her long, dark hair was tied back in a simple, severe ponytail. Her face was the most captivating element. It was a mask of serene neutrality. Her eyes, dark and piercing, held an unnerving focus. They didn't scan the crowd or glare at the ring. They seemed to be looking inward, centered and present. Her walk was mesmerizing. It wasn't a stomp or a strut. It was a smooth, gliding motion, her feet seeming to barely touch the ramp. Her posture was perfect, her center of gravity low. She moved like a river, calm on the surface, but with a deadly current underneath. She was a living weapon, embodying the Aikido principles her father had made famous, fluid, precise, and lethally efficient. "Cole, look at the way she moves," Corey Graves whispered, completely captivated. "There is zero wasted energy. Every single step is deliberate. She wasn't trained in a weight room. She was forged in a dojo. This is a level of discipline we have never seen before. We are looking at a true martial arts master." The stillness that broke the bloodline. Arissa LeBrock ascended the steel steps, not with a stomp, but with a light, silent grace. She flowed through the ropes and into the center of the ring, a sanctuary of stillness in a storm of confusion. She stood directly across from Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, a man whose entire empire was built on intimidation and explosive power, found himself facing its complete opposite. He stared into her eyes, searching for fear, for doubt, for any crack in her composure, and found nothing. It was like trying to intimidate the ocean. His power, his rage, his very presence simply washed over her, leaving her unmoved. Solo Sikoa, ever the faithful enforcer, took an aggressive step forward, attempting to flank her. Without breaking eye contact with Roman, Arissa made a subtle, almost invisible shift in her stance. Her weight distribution changed. Her hands moved an inch. It was a minute adjustment, but it was a clear signal to anyone who understood combat. She was now aware of him, had calculated his trajectory, and was prepared to neutralize him without a second thought. Solo instinctively froze, sensing the danger in her stillness. Roman Reigns let out a frustrated, dismissive scoff. He was used to opponents who met his intensity with their own. This serene indifference was more infuriating than any challenge. "Who do you think you are?" Roman boomed, his voice echoing in the tense arena. "You walk into my ring on my show. You stand there and say nothing. You look at me with nothing. Acknowledge me." Arissa remained silent, her breathing steady, her focus absolute. This refusal to engage on his terms was a form of psychological warfare he had never encountered. It was a dismantling of his aura from the inside out. Paul Heyman, seeing his tribal chief's composure begin to crack, stepped forward, his voice a nervous squeak. "My tribal chief, this is beneath you. She is no one. Let us—" Arissa slowly turned her head, her gaze falling upon Paul Heyman. Her eyes weren't filled with contempt or anger. It was a look of profound pity, the look a master gives a novice who doesn't understand the forces at play. Heyman's words died in his throat. He felt transparent, his schemes and manipulations utterly useless against this wall of disciplined calm. Finally, Arissa LeBrock turned her focus back to Roman Reigns and the gleaming championship on his shoulder. She gave a slow, deliberate blink. And then she spoke. Her voice was not loud. It was soft, controlled, and carried an unnerving clarity that cut through every other sound in the building. It was the voice of a teacher, a philosopher, and an executioner, all in one. "You cling to that symbol because you believe it gives you power," she said, her words precise and devastating. "True power needs no symbol. It is not held, it is wielded." She took one fluid step forward, closing the distance. "Power is an illusion," she continued, her voice dropping to an almost whisper, "and your illusion is about to end." Before the meaning of her words could fully register, her theme music, the haunting hum and the taiko drums, began to swell. Without another word, she gave a final dismissive glance at the title, turned with the same serene grace, and flowed out of the ring. She glided back up the ramp, disappearing into the darkness from whence she came, leaving a dynasty in a state of utter psychological disarray. The aftermath. A new philosophy of violence. The Bloodline was left standing in a silent ring, the crowd erupting around them. The invincible aura of the tribal chief had been pierced, not by a spear or a suplex, but by stillness and philosophy. The internet exploded with a ferocity even greater than before. The Seagal legacy in WWE. The questions were immediate. How does the daughter of an Aikido master, an icon of the no-sell and effortless dispatching of foes, translate to the world of WWE? Steven Seagal's film persona was that of an untouchable master. Arissa LeBrock embodied that same energy. A new fighting style. Speculation ran rampant. Would she use Aikido in the ring? Joint locks, pressure points, redirection of momentum? How could a powerhouse like Roman Reigns fight an opponent who refused to meet force with force, instead using his own aggression against him? She represented a completely new stylistic challenge, a puzzle that couldn't be solved with Samoan drops and Superman punches. The mind of a master. Her debut was a masterclass in psychological warfare. She didn't challenge Roman Reigns physically, she challenged his very definition of power. She positioned herself not as a challenger to his throne, but as the truth that would expose his reign as a fragile charade. This was a battle for the soul of WWE, not just its top prize. Friday Night SmackDown concluded not with the acknowledgement of a chief, but with the haunting riddle of a master. Arissa LeBrock did more than just debut. She introduced a new philosophy of combat to the WWE universe. She proved that the most dangerous threat isn't always the one that roars the loudest, but the one that waits in perfect, disciplined silence. The walls of the island of relevancy were not brought down by a battering ram. They were rendered obsolete by an opponent who simply walked through them. A new master is here, not to play the game, but to change its fundamental rules. The reign of the tribal chief has been confronted with a terrifying truth. You cannot punch the river, you cannot intimidate the mountain, and you cannot break that which is already in perfect balance. A new era of discipline has begun.